Well, these are all natural dyes the nomads have created. I've had bottled for 20 years, so they could still be used as dye. That's black. That's a lovely rosy red color. It must be a cream, quite a bright cream color. And look at that. It's all natural from plants, flowers, just whatever is growing that they can use to dye the wool in. Once they've spun the wool, they can then dye it in a great big pot. So this is the design that is painted and drawn up to go on the loom, so the ladies can copy right across each row of knots. Now obviously this is minuscule, because when they tie the knots, they're twice the thickness, if not 3 times the thickness. But once they've tied a row of knots, they then feed through a weft, and then they take a big beating comb and knock it down to give tension under here where all the earlier knots were. And then they start a new row of knots, the row above. And they do that for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, the carpet is completed. What I had to do when nobody else was prepared to do it, that is, carry all the rugs out and put them ready for packing. It's woven in Isfahan, which is a very fine weaving area of Iran, if not the finest. It's part silk. Wherever you can see shiny, that's silk, and the rest is a very fine wool. The silk comes from North Iran. Don't forget, this isn't a nomadic weave. This is woven in Isfahan. They would have imported and brought down all the silk they'd needed to weave this rug. This lady is milking this animal, and this lady is milking this animal, and this lady is carrying the milk in a jug. Don't quite understand what this is. Is this a river? But it's water flowing anyway. And look at this pot. I mean, that is just amazing. Someone's cooking a very lovely supper. There's a wonderful signature across the bottom here. Quite unusual not to have a bit of silk in an Isfahan. They weave before beginning the carpet so that there is a base against which they can hit. And then they can power up the carpet knots and make them solid and secure. This is quite interesting. Just look at that. What a scene. That's a cine. Isn't it amazing? But this is 100 years old. Well, this was found in Russia. There were a lot of historic graves 2,500 years ago. In one of the graves, they found a carpet. And it's unbelievably, it's about 85 to 90% complete. And this is a copy I had made, and there must be 10 or 12 copies in the world, and that's one of them. It's very special. This is a saddle bag that the Qashqai use over the neck of the horse or the donkey, and store maybe their extra set of clothes. That is for cooking. Goes on a fire. The area where the Qashqai migrate and live, each area has its type of rug. This is where I'm handling dyed wool. That was our trading name for 50 years, LOC. That's Nasser, who was my Iranian partner, died in a car crash coming back from Hamadan. Really lovely, delicate, goodness knows how I managed to get only a fraction of it, but the loom obviously came apart, and I was able to buy these units, Turkish hereke, very fine, very beautifully done. But there's not much you can do except put it on a frame and exhibit it. 10 by 15. This one is 13 by 15. That's a big beast. It's Qashqai. They hang it in the tents. This is an Iranian girl who agreed to come with me to Scotland and Paris and even Canada, I think, and teach people how to knot, show people how to knot in the carpet department. There's the beater to beat down the knots. These are Iranian scissors measured and made to chop the top of the knots. That's a Bukhara tent. So it's the Bukhara tribes. They're nothing to do with the Qashqais. This is up in the northeast of Iran. That's a vegetable bazaar somewhere. This is a Qashqai camel bag that goes over the front of the camel in front of the person riding it, and it carries quite a lot of equipment from the previous camping ground. And notice the design is very geometric, lots of diamonds all over it, and it's really a lovely thick quality. It's fabulously done.
This is how they would do it up. So there's some slits here with loops, and you put it through, you carry it on,
It's
and
amazing.
you put it through. So you just hitch it done up like all the way along once they'd filled it with everything for their trip. Beautiful and so simple.
Yeah. This is from the Shahsovan tribe, northwestern Iran. They migrate a lot with 2 bags like this, one either side of a camel. Efficient, the way they get stuff in and hang it off the animal. When they get to their destination, they have to gently come off the animal and drop the big bags and then start erecting their tents. This is what they use, both the Shahsovan and the Qashqai, across the top of the head of the animal, and then these things keep the flies off. So they don't get too annoyed.
You had to wear it like that.
Yes, they wear it like that, exactly.
Every string is a different design. You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
just,
true.
It is amazing. You know, I mean by string, I mean these. You know, they're not all the same, or they're just using up all the little bits of wool. Now this was interesting. This is part of migration equipment as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That's the saddle of the donkey for the ladies. You stuff cotton or wool or something up here, and you make it a tube that's padded. So then you put it on the donkey with this at the back and that at the front, and you sit here, and it's a saddle.
It's a softening of the saddle.
It's a Shahsovan horse blanket, and it goes over the back of the horse, and the head of the horse comes up here, and that sits over the back of the horse. But they do a beautiful job of embroidering the animals here. It's just so fabulous.
This is flat embroidered work, not tufted.
So there is where the blanket sits on the back of the horse, and then these two come across the front, and then I ride for the next 16 hours up the mountain. The salt bag is for the women to use on migration when they're going from summer pastures in the south and coming up into the mountains, which in the winter are snow-covered. As the heat increases in April and May, the upper pastures become useful for the sheep, and they get the sheep up there. And on the way there, they have to feed them salt. The salt makes a big difference to the sheep as they climb up. These are straps. They're quite long, probably 10 meters, and they strap partly for the tents and partly for holding the loads on the camels and donkeys.
So there's a beautiful flat plait here on the end, like girls do in their hair. This is how it would work. So there you can start strapping things onto the animal through this lovely wooden piece, just hand carved. And probably a slit here where they probably managed to tie it off somehow.
What we've got here is an upright loom with all the different colours set equally so that the lady can reach them in order to tie her knots in the warps. It is actually a knotted carpet of a lady knotting a carpet. Quite unusual.
So the tribal rugs are woven on flat looms, which are easy for them to dismantle, roll up, and then travel with. And so the women peg them out on the ground once they establish their camp, and they weave in a flat loom.
And this would have been in Tabriz in a well-organized weaving area, like that lady.
Like the picture.
And it would have been, it's got a lot of detail. It's quite beautiful. That's all wool. So was the previous one.
It's got a central medallion.
So this is a part silk sene from central Iran, and it's very beautiful, over 100 years old.
And very fine.
And extremely fine, and lots of silk on it, and lots of wool. It's a mixture.
Weave is much tighter, more knots per square inch.
It's 100% silk, and I think it's Iranian. It's very fine. It has highly unusual characters on it. I wanted to relate it to the beginning of mankind 3 million years ago, when the monkeys and the apes managed to make the first human. It seems that the first human they made came out with 2 heads. Well, the dervish that has existed, I think, for thousands of years in Iran, would go around seeking the truth, resolving issues amongst people and towns and villages and so on. And he would carry this over his shoulder in order to receive food and no other compensation. He just wanted food and a place to sleep. And he just did it for love. It was amazing.
So there's a lovely painting here on a piece of ivory of a dervish seated on the ground with his bowl, just like the one Nick has, in front of him. So it's a really fine painting, this one, in an inlay frame.
There's amazing Persian writing around it and design all over it. Lovely 2 turquoise, because turquoise is found in Iran. They mine it. So this is a Turkoman gentleman's wedding jacket. So the ladies have similar things, but differently made, a bit finer, a bit more precise.
And the sleeves are not designed to be worn. It would be worn like this.
So all I need now is a wife. Can I take this one?
Good luck with that. It's all embroidered, tiny, tiny stitches.
And then this is the hat that the Turkomans wear for special events. Therefore, they could wear it at a wedding. And as you can see, these geometric diamond-shaped and down here are very similar. So it's the same encouragement, same origin. And this is a very lovely animal encouragement. It's leather, wood, and copper or brass or something. And at the top it's got colored stones around it that they mine somewhere. Every Qashqai man wears a hat like this on the whole migration up to the mountain and down from the mountain. They're so noticeable. It's a bit like having a label on you saying, I'm a Qashqai. And this is a Qashqai rug that the hat wearers' wives weave. So the men don't weave amongst the Qashqais, only the women. Qashqai women live in tents. The loom is dug into the ground and stretched up, and you get something like 2 by 3 meters, sometimes bigger, in one tent. And then you get these little, it's a saddlebag. When they've knotted, the wool is everywhere, it's all up here. And then they go through and they clip it like this. And as you can see, I'm managing to clip a little bit myself, because these are probably 60, 70 years old, and they're still clipping beautifully. Isfahan weaves incredibly fine carpets, and for some reason they decided to copy a chessboard. They're very popular. The tree is beautiful. Don't know what this guy is, but he's beautiful. All over Iran, they do some of this printing block material that they call galamkar. And so this has been carved out to put just the one color on here. And they dip it in the color, press it on the material, and then lift it off, and then go to the next one. So you get 3 of these similar design, but each with different height of impression. And then you end up with red, yellow, blue, and it's quite impressive how they manage to make this amazing designed material, because it's really loved. It's a writing box. So that is the ink, and it closes down like that. And then that goes in this end, and in here go the 4 pencils that have been dropped in the black ink, and then they've written with them. These are their pens, so to speak. And there's an amazing pair of scissors, and that is a spoon to keep the ink wet. So if it dries out too much, they put a bit more hot water on and use it to write with. That's how it closes up. This is a Qashqai again, and it's a small salt bag that the girls carry over their shoulders when they're leading the sheep. And they dip their hands in here, take some salt out and throw it to the sheep. This is a map of Persia, and it's entitled The Kingdom of Persia, with the chief cities and halutes described. Made by John Speed, 1620, 1,300 years after Alexander the Great conquered Iran, and they intended to defeat India. The soldiers revolted, and so Alexander's Greek soldiers decided they wanted to go home to their families. So they headed across here from India, across this desert. As you can see, it's pretty empty here.
And the pictures down the side here have got, in sort of slightly old English, city man. And then here is a city wife. And here is a country man and Turkish woman. And then across the top are some pictures of cities with names that we don't recognize.
It's very unusual. These people are no man's wife, a citizen, and a Turkish man. There I was, intending to go to university in the United States on an ice hockey scholarship. My father sent me to Iran. And when I got there, I went straight to our bazaar broker agent man. My job was to go around and learn from him, but actually my job was to carry his pipes. So I had a bag and I carried his 2 pipes and his tobacco and a way of lighting them for him. And everywhere we went in the bazaar, he'd sit down and people would show rugs and I'd look at them, and then he'd say, so I'd have to bring him the pipe. Oh, he was so happy when he had his pipe. I was in New York and I went to see a dealer, a merchant there, to see if I could sell him something. And then he said, is your name Oundjian? And I said, yeah. He said, oh, well, I've got a rug here that your grandfather bought in 1920. He brought this down and he said, this was Mahnoush Oundjian buying this in 1920 in New York at auction. Oh, it's a Shirvan, so it's Russian. When grandfather bought it, it must have been a good 50, 60 years old. So go 1870, 1880, something like that. But in perfect condition. Amazing, beautiful condition. Well, this is a very unusual long-legged camel rug. Whoever the girls were that chose to weave this, They decided to make long legs on the camels. I decided that it's so unusual, a little bit like my fiancée at the time, that I decided to give it to her as a wedding present.
Oh, actually, it was it was my engagement present.
It was an engagement.
On May the 14th, 1968. Wasn't what I expected to open a parcel from you. It was a rug. But anyway, it's absolutely gorgeous.